Hello, my name is AJ Goldsby. I'm a life master from Pensacola, Florida, and I wanted to bring you today a video on one of the greatest end games I've ever played in all of Rook and Pawn end games. And this game is very famous. It's been annotated zillions of times by many different authors. It's been featured in many different books. It was just finished featured in a new book about the greatest end games of all time, I believe by Steve Giddens. But anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at this game. White is Jose Capablanca, and black is Savielly Tartakower, or Tartakower, as some people say. And this game was played in the New York International Chess Tournament in 1924. Of course, Capablanca dominated this tournament and basically ran away with this tournament. Well, without any further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at this game because it's a great game of chess. And I'm going to kind of skip to the early part of the game because I want to concentrate mainly on the end game. I will comment on a few of the moves. Starts off as a d4, e6, knight f3. Capablanca shows he prefers a queen pawn type of opening. He's hoping to transpose back to a queen's gambit, which he was pretty much a master. I mean, very few players can play the queen's gambit with Capablanca. f5. This is obviously a Dutch defense. c4, knight f6. And now Kappa plays a very simple move. He plays bishop to g5 here. And I think that's a pretty good move. It's a pretty simple move. Today, most opening books give the move g3. They prefer the move g3 here. And instead, push the pawn. That's the Rubinstein system. However, you have to remember that this game was played in 1924, and opening theory really wasn't mapped out too well back then. So Kappa just chooses a very simple developing move. He's going to get his bishop outside his pawn structure, just the same ideas in the queen's gambit before he plays e3, and it's just a very simple developing move. Probably gives white a very tiny advantage. Bishop e7, knight at c3, castles, e3, b6. Black fianchettos his queen bishop. That's a common idea in the classical Dutch. Bishop d3, bishop b7. And now white just simply castles. And I think here we can say white has a very tiny advantage. He controls a number of squares here in the center a little bit better than black does. Excuse me. And the bottom line is that white just stands a little bit better because he has a little bit more space. Here black plays queen e8. That's a very thematic idea. Very oftentimes in the Dutch, black will transfer his queen to e8 and then to h5 and attack on the king side. Kappa just goes queen e2. He's looking to play e4 here. That would pretty much nullify the long diagonal and also give white a tremendous advantage, because after e takes, knight takes, then basically white's going to have the only pawns to control the center, whereas black's f5 pawn has been eliminated. Tartakower plays knight e4. This position is pretty much equal, or Alicon even opined that he thought black might be slightly better here. But anyway, knight e4. Bishop takes e7. Knight takes c3. That's a little in-between move. The idea is, obviously that you can't take the rook because of knight takes queen check. And basically black wanted to give white a set of doubled c-pawns. B takes c3, queen takes e7. a4, this is a very good position here. White, it's not real clear here to me. If I hadn't seen this game, I wouldn't really know what I would play or what side of the board I should be playing on. But here, white plays a4 here, and the idea is basically just to gain more space and take advantage of, the squares on the queen side. And also, black had a threat here. It wasn't really so much a threat to win material, but it was kind of a positional threat. He played the very annoying move queen a3, and this queen would attack these pawns, and it's very hard to evict the queen once it gets lodged in over there on the queen side. So a4 not only gains space, but also it prevents the queen from the black queen from intruding on the a3 square. Bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, knight c6. I'm sure this game was highly influenced by Nimzowicz's many successes with a knight versus doubled pawns. I mean, people had come to look upon this type of position, or this type of endgame, almost as a forced win for the side with the knight because of all of Nimzowicz's successes. And however, here Kappa understands that there's a few different things. There's a few minor differences here. One is that the queens are still on, and also two that the white's pawns have not yet been fixed. That's extremely important. RFB1, again, white's idea is simply, he's playing totally on the queen side, and you can see, by where he's playing his pieces, where he wants to place his various pieces by playing totally on the queen side here. And Soltis makes the comment here, Andrew Soltis makes the comment that Capa handles the center and both wings expertly. And I agree with that. That's 100% correct. RAE8, black's playing to, get his break in with E5 and maybe even play E5 with the idea of E4, giving, forking white's queen and bishop. Not only that, E5 would give black a tremendous game, because if white played pawn takes pawn, then black would be left, white would be left with these two isolated pawns here. And these double isolated pawns would be basically dead ducks in the endgame. So anyway, RAE8, Queen H3, a very good move, very nice move. Basically, there's not going to be any F4 here because of, Queen takes H7 check. Pushing this pawn, that was one of black's threats, was to push this pawn and try to open up the F file. And also E5 is now answered by just bishop takes F5, and all black has done is drop a pawn. So Queen H3 was a very nice move. Black plays rook F6. I think he's looking just rook to H6 to counterattack the white queen. White plays a F4 exclam. Again, the idea is to put a lock on this E5 square. Black plays knight A5. Again, this is, he's trying to blockade the queen side. The idea is to play C5 and blockade these double pawns. That's the Nimzowitsch concept of the correct way to play these type of positions. Blockade, restrain, blockade, and destroy. So, and if you've ever read books, any of Nimzowicz's books, such as My System or Chess Praxis, then you would be aware of these ideas. White plays queen back to F3. This is a really nice move here. I show this to a lot of students over the years, and very few students find this idea of re-centralizing the queen. In other words, the queen stepped out of the way so that the F-pawn could take 2 steps forward, but now that the queen has done her job, she gets back to the center where she's much more active. D6, black's just again playing, maybe he should play C5 there, but D6 again with the same ideas. Rook E1, now white suddenly changes gears. Now all of a sudden, after looking like he might be going to play on the queen side and play a move like rook B5, suddenly white changes gears and places his rook on E1, and all of a sudden he's threatening play E4 with a clear positional superiority, because here the bishop would be much better than knight. And if black tries to slow things down with a move like B5, that just undoubles, drops a pawn here. But even if he tries like C6 and D5, that's a bad idea, simply because it undoubles white's doubled pawns there, which is Black wants white to keep the double pawns, and of course white is working to undouble his pawns. Queen D7. Black just steps off the E file there. White plays E4. Basically, he's no longer waiting. He's going to blow the center wide open, and also too now after if black plays F takes E4, then white can double or even triple his rooks now on this backward, E pawn in a half open file. So that's a very good move there. F takes E4. Queen takes E4. Again, the idea is forming 2 batteries at once. The queen is threatening E6. The queen is also threatening H7. Black responds in the only way pretty much he can, G6. Now white plays G3. King F8. King G2 exclam. Another very refined, very sophisticated move. Again, it's not clear, what's happening and where white should be playing, and Capa finds the simplest response. His idea is just very simple. He's going to play, in fact, you could get almost all of Capa's moves over the last 5 or 10 moves exclams, because they show a very subtle idea. And now that Capa's consolidating his position, and now he's threatening the idea of H4, H5, and he'll pry open the H file and get a rook into black's position for the endgame. Very sophisticated, very precise handling of this position by Capablanca. Rook F7, H4 exclam. Again, white's continuing his idea of playing now on the right hand side of the board, having earlier played on the left hand. Now he's playing totally on the right hand side. D5. This move is probably, could be viewed as a possible minor mistake. Basically, several authors have said that it leads to a bad endgame for black, and that black should have never undoubled white's pawns. Some other possibilities here were simply to play C5, but that's going to leave white with a long-term advantage. And again, I have analyzed this position deeply on my webpage for this game, and I will put my webpage in the little block just below the video where it says show more, and I'll put the link for my web page. And my web page is very well known, and it was one of the very first pages on this game, and it's by far the most meticulous and the best analysis, at least in terms of depth and quoting all the sources. D5. White, of course, gets to undouble his pawns. E takes D5. Now white says it's time for the endgame. So queen takes E8 check, exclam. Queen takes E8, rook takes E8, king takes E8, H5. Again, a lot of my students want to play rook E1 check here, but that's totally the wrong approach. Again, the idea is white wants to bust up black's king side. H5, rook F6, H takes G6, H takes G6. Rook H1. Again, the idea is get the rook to the 7th rank. Obviously, black can't defend his 2nd rank. A lot of my students suggest rook F7 here, forgetting that bishop takes G6 just drops a pawn and loses the exchange. So obviously, defending the 7th rank isn't a possibility for black. Black comes up with an idea. He plays king F8 there, safeguarding his position. Obviously, if you play, rook C6 here, bishop B5 will pin the rook to the king. So basically, white would like to play rook C6, but he can't do it immediately because of bishop B5. So king F8 is stepping the king off that light squared diagonal, so they can place his rook on the C6 square. Rook H7, rook C6. Black had to guard this pawn or just drop a pawn. Now this is funny. I've showed this position even to some expert level players and asked them, what would you do here? And a lot of them said, well, I would resign here. And this is just simply amazing. But, they don't see any way to defend this pawn. And here's where Kappa begins to show a very deep understanding of this position and also a very detailed and very firm grasp of the general ideas of the endgame. He plays G4. Again, the idea is to get your majority rolling. And now it's a very simple idea. If rook takes C3, then bishop takes G6. And white clearly has the better ending. He has, two connected passers, and they just roll up the center. And with the black king nailed to the back row, that's probably going to be fatal. So knight C4. Black had to do something there. White plays G5. Again, a very good move. Locks this pawn down on the light-colored square. The pawn can't ever run away now. It's always going to be attacked by the bishop. Prevents doubled pawns. Keeps black guessing. Keeps black pinned up. Just a very good move. Knight E3 check. King F3. Knight F5. Now, again, I've showed this position to many of my students, and some of my students have told me they thought black was just flat out winning here because it looks like white's just going to, in fact, indeed, it turns out that white cannot guard his c-pawn, and one might think, well, if Capablanca was such a great genius of the chess game, what in the world was he thinking? I mean, his c-pawn looks doomed, and there looks no way to protect it now. And here's where the game really becomes special. Bishop takes F5. Again, you can almost give that an exclam. G takes F5. And now we have a very brilliant move, just King G3, double exclam. You think, what the heck? That's just in an endgame where pawns are worth their weight in gold. Kappa, he's not going to give up one, but 2 pawns. And that's just the amazing thing about this game. And furthermore, he's going to give both the pawns away with check. But anyway, rook takes C3 check. King H4, rook to F3, G6, rook takes F4 check, King G5, and now rook E4. And here I think I want to turn on an engine here just to help me analyze just a little bit here, see what the engine says here about this particular position. A long time ago, this is kind of a funny story because I first analyzed this thing with much older engines, and then later Fritz 5.32 came out, and now we're up to Fritz 13. So, I've been working at this, analyzing chess games with engines for a long time. Now, Fritz 13 actually already sees that white has a decisive advantage here. And it also shows that rook E4 is forced. And that's funny because one annotator, I won't, bother annotating, giving all the different annotators, he called rook E4 a question mark. But Fritz shows rook E4 is absolutely the best move there. See, rook takes D4, just King F6, and black is just completely lost. He gets chewed up pretty quickly there. But anyway, so rook E4 is forced, and white plays King F6. And now we're going to see basically just how important this idea is. This king sitting on F6 is just a monster, and it's the idea of this king on F6, a passed pawn, and a rook on the 7th rank with the enemy king nailed to the back row. And here I've highlighted the squares there so you can see that idea. And this game really was a breakthrough chess game, because it showed for the very first time, Kappa plays 39, king f6 exclam here. And it just shows, even though he's leaving his d pawn hanging, well, actually the d pawn's not hanging, because obviously if rook takes d4, then simply rook h8 checkmate. So there's mate threats there, and it's amazing that white went down 2 pawns, but yet he would have a winning position here. And this shows the idea of having a king on the 6th rank, a passed pawn, usually on one of the adjacent files, close to the king, and having the rook on the 7th rank, nailing the enemy king to the edge of the board, with mate threats. And that's a decisive idea. I remember one time I was playing a game of my own. It was versus a master, and I didn't really know what to do. I was a pawn down, and I sacrificed another pawn with the same idea. I thought, well, I'll try to get to a position where I have a passed pawn and I can get my king up to the 5th rank, and then later it got to the 6th rank, and it was the exact same kind of idea. I got a rook to the 7th rank, and by sacrificing 2 pawns, I was able to gain a tremendous amount of counterplay, and in the end, my opponent wasn't able to contain my counterplay. But and again, I didn't invent the idea. I was simply copying an idea that I had already seen from this game by Capablanca. So this is really a tremendous game, and it was, like I said, a really breakthrough game. It was the first game of its kind that I know of, and I've studied chess my entire life, where one person shows the power and the strength of ideas, and I don't think anyone showed them with the elegance and the simple, just unbelievable linear beauty that Capablanca showed in his games. Anyway, king f6, and now black struggles, but he just lost. King g8, check. That's a very good move. Put the king in the corner. King there. Rook takes pawn. And now, of course, black can't grab a pawn, because the rook pawn grabbing days are over, because if the black rook grabs a pawn, then of course rook takes d4, again rook c8 mate. So the rook must return to the 1st rank. And now king takes f5 exclam. The very first thing we notice is that once the black rook is no longer behind and can't check from behind, and now the white king snaps off this f5 pawn, which before was a shield to possible checks from behind by the black rook. Rook e4, again pretty much forced. King f6, again threatening mates again. Rook f4 check, king e5. That hits the rook and protects his pawn and threatens the black d pawn, so the most precise. And all of these moves are correct according to Fritz. Again, black can play either rook g4 or rook e4 check. Those are some of the top choices of the computer. Black plays rook g4, and again, the idea is to pick off the pawn. Now the pawn goes to g7 check. Here we have a very simple idea. This is where knowing your king and pawn endings is very important. If rook takes pawn, simply rook takes rook, king takes rook. This king gobbles off this pawn and can come gobble up these 2 pawns, and basically white will have a 1 king and pawn ending. There's no way that the black king can stop 2 passed pawns, so white will eventually promote a pawn. g7 check, king g8 again. That was absolutely forced. Rook takes a7 exclam. He sees that he can win this pawn, but his idea is that he doesn't have to be in a hurry to capture this pawn. And a real blunder here, some of my students have suggested rook g5 check, but that's terrible, because after king f6, now the pawn on f6 is defended, the rook is attacked, and black can't stop rook a8 check, and and this pawn will promote, and that's going to kill black. So in some lines he even gets mated. Like one student showed the line, he thought rook here check, king f6, rook down here, and rook here check, king h7, but then the white rook simply plays rook h8, and that's checkmate. So there's one line for you, and it just shows you some of the ideas here and some of the things that Capablanca had to calculate. But it's just again, it's a testimony to the strength and the simplicity and the absolute elegance of Capablanca's play in this endgame. So rook g1, king takes d5, and now suddenly we see a total turnaround. And now black plays rook c1. This is a very simple idea. The white king was threatening to come over here and gobble up the last pawn, so the black rook provides a barrier here, trying to cut the white king off from coming over here and gobbling up a pawn. And now we see a total turnaround from how things were earlier. Basically, white had gone down 2 pawns in order to get a slightly superior position. Now all of a sudden we find that the thing has the balance of material has totally shifted, and now white is up 2 pawns. So it's just amazing again how that one idea of getting a king to the 6th rank, a pawn to the 6th rank, on an adjacent file and the rook on the 7th rank, pinning the enemy king to the edge of the board. Just how powerful that idea is and what dividends it paid for Capablanca in this game. King d6, again, the idea is very simple. White wants to improve his position. He can't cross this barrier here, so he plays king d6 and maybe even king d7 with the idea of running this pawn as further up the board. Rook c2, d5, rook c1, and now rook c7. He says, he provides a bridge. Rook a1, king c6, rook takes a4, and now we play d6. And here black resigned. And, if you want to know what the finishing moves could have been, what it would look like if they had played it out, just following the computer moves, well, we'll follow a different line. Well, rook c4 check is one line. Rook c4 check, king b7, b5, d7, rook d5, check, queen takes, b5, rook there, pawn there, rook there, pawn there. Rook takes b2, and of course, if white can mate with a rook and pawn, then he can win fairly easily. And that's just one way for the white player to win. But the game actually ended after, just backing up here, after this move 52 d6. I believe that was when Tartakower, black, offered his resignation here. Can't tell you what a tremendous game this is for me. Tremendous accuracy and just laser perfect precision by Capablanca, one of the greatest geniuses of chess who ever played. And just a tremendous game. And it shows, well, let me quote someone here. It says, Burgess gives a comment here, and I think it's pretty much can close my comments on this game by just reading this comment by Burgess. This endgame provides a superb example of a number of important endgame themes: pass pawns, rook activity, king activity, and an admirable avoidance of materialism when the initiative is at stake. F.M. Graham Burgess. And I think that pretty much says it all. To that I can only add that the game truly shows the artistry in the endgame by the great genius of the game, Jose Real Capablanca. Well, that's pretty much it for all my my video of this game. If you've enjoyed my video, please watch my other videos. Please like me, subscribe to my channel, and if you want to support my efforts, you can go to the PayPal website and make a contribution under my email address, which is LifeMasterAJ@yahoo.com. Thank you for watching my video, and have a great day.